Hi, welcome to this week's edition of 26 Minutes with. I'm your host, David Cohen, and this show is about leadership, those who are making a positive impact, and those who are inspired to change the world. And our guest this week is fits the bill perfectly. She is a leader and a change maker. It's Gloria C. Jones. She's a resident in Birmingham, Alabama, born and raised in the heart of the civil rights movement, educated in the Jefferson County school system, and received her degrees from the University of Alabama at Birmingham and Alabama A&M University in Huntsville, Alabama. She's a retired federal employee with 35 years of service. She's a Toastmaster and has been a Toastmaster since 2014, having received the highest achievement and currently serving as an executive leader in Toastmasters International District 77. She's a strong leader in her family, church, and community, and her mantra is, let's do it and do it right the first time. I like that. You mean business.
I do. Thank you. Yeah.
Gloria, welcome. Welcome
Thank you.
to
Thank you, David.
26 Minutes with. You know, we talked off air, and there's several key discussion points in our interview today. And one is the myth that once one retires, and after serving, with the federal government for 35 years in various roles, once one retires from work, that perhaps purpose, meaning, and even starting a business is not something one does because of the age. And we see ageism quite often in society today. What are your beliefs about those over 60 in terms of what they can and want to do? What are your beliefs around that? Just because you're over 60.
David, when it comes to the age, that's just a number with me. One of the things that means the most is to give back once we've completed our career. That is the opportune time to really focus on paying it forward, giving back, making a difference in the lives of many others.
I agree. You're really a shining example, too, of living life full on over 60 and doing what you're passionate about. And you just, alluded to it now, giving back. Where did that drive come from within you, Gloria?
Part of it comes from my upbringing. I came up in a family with strong Christian beliefs. My father was really the epitome of a giver. I can recall times when big fisherman, a big hunter, and when
Mm.
he would fish, it was fish for the whole neighborhood. And whenever he would hunt for the ones that would eat rabbits and squirrels, he would share. And it was just part of my upbringing, and it's really foundational for me. So I'm a giver, and I love to give. And I really believe that that's what makes the difference is when we give to others and make their lives better.
And as we give, and tell me if you find this, as you give, you get back. It's called giver's gain, right? This notion of
Yes.
giver's gain. What do you get, personally, emotionally, spiritually, when you're in that giving mindset?
One of the things I get back the most is fulfillment of purpose. When we know what we were sent in earth to do. And for me, it is to give of myself to make sure that others can be the best person that they can be, to make sure with our children that because they're living in a time that is so different from when we grew up, that they have all that they need, making sure that we are there to support them and giving them a great jump start. My fulfillment comes from making sure when I can see the evidence of young people having vision and hopes and dreams, knowing that there are great things ahead for them in their lives.
We're talking a little bit about this notion of age not being, a factor. How would you, how would you coach somebody else who's, maybe they just retired or and they don't feel like, well, what do I have to give? I worked in a retail store all my life, or I was, whatever. I worked with the city parks and rec, or transportation, or whatever. And how would you coach somebody else, to get over themselves and say, no, listen, you still have something to give, and you have knowledge and expertise. Well, how would you coach them to sort of get off it and still live a life of, where you're following your passions, and you're following this notion of giving and sharing your expertise?
David, I would probably start with someone at that age asking the question if they feel like they've really fulfilled destiny, purpose. Are they on that journey to fulfill destiny? Have they really accomplished? Because I believe all of us are sent into the earth on an assignment, and we have to know what it is we were sent here to do. Have we done that? And that would be the start. I would want to encourage them to do an introspection. And at that point, they should be able to answer some very, intense questions about, their lives and whether or not they've accomplished. And if not, then that would be the starting point. Let's decide on how we can move forward in reaching purpose and, destiny as far as what you were sent here to do.
And when did you discover your purpose and destiny? What do you feel it is in your heart?
Sometimes you can know something about yourself, but you really don't understand it. For a long time, I've known that I was to teach, and I had been doing it for years, and I was known to speak. Started speaking when I was 16-year-old, but I didn't quite understand what exactly all of that really meant for me. But it was until I finally became an adult and I understood that when I teach and when I can see the evidence of people walking away with a greater awareness, that was my purpose, that was part of my destiny. And as I got older and came through the business world, I was a teacher on my job. I realized that common thread has followed me through life. And now that I'm retired, I'm still teaching. And that is my purpose in life, is really to create a more inclusive world through teaching and coaching and just speaking in the presence of people.
I love it. And yeah, we met on a call with Lance Secretan, who was a previous guest a couple of weeks ago. And man, like immediately when you came on, like you had your energy just flowed, and it was like a kindness and a sharing energy that you brought onto that call. So your passion and this purpose shows up, even when you're probably not feeling you're on. You're just showing up for a leadership class that we were both on. One of your passions, and you've mentioned it already, is with speaking, but it's your involvement with Toastmasters. And to me, Toastmasters is it really encourages people, regular people, to find their voice and to be able to have the courage to speak up. What do you see in those that come to Toastmasters for the very first time? And you say, well, tell us about yourself for 2 minutes, right? So what do you see in those that come to Toastmasters for the very first time as far as their courage to speak goes?
I believe when it comes to speaking, even the best of speakers, they have butterflies, may not have as many. One of the things I cherish about Toastmaster, we don't pressure any of our members. We allow them. It's a self-paced program, and it's really up to them when they feel that they're ready to share. We call the icebreaker, the first speech, 4 to 6 minutes, and it's mainly about themselves. But one of the things I try to inspire is when we see newcomers hang out for more than a month or so, and we realize then that maybe we need to just remind them that everybody had to come that way. We all had those moments, and just kind of nudge them. Okay, you better than anybody, so it's just a matter of just having a conversation with your best friend, and that helps a lot. It helps a lot. But I believe all speakers, pastors, preachers, professional speakers, they have a little bit of of a little discomfort, and then you get over it. But I think, that Toastmasters is a great place to start.
Now, what have you seen, like, the transformation? Like, let's say somebody coming to you for the first time to your group. What transformation do you see maybe a year later in them?
They start out not wanting to share, not wanting to tell us about themselves. And normally, David, it gets to a point where they begin to miss the clock because, in Toastmaster, everything is timed.
Mm.
A great speaker has to be disciplined enough to stay within the timeline. And they become confident, more confident. And then we have to then shift to working with them on the timing, making sure you stay within your timeline. And one of the things I share with them you don't want is to be clapped down, because normally sometimes that will happen. And so that's part of the process of really building those communication skills, is to help them to understand you got to bring in the discipline of the time factor. But they begin to talk more, and that's a good thing. And so you begin to shape them as they grow in their speeches, different kinds of speeches, but then bringing in the timer. And then we have what we call the R counter, that are focused only on filler words and excessive words, and the grammarian. All of those roles help just really, to make us become better communicators.
Right. So filler words like somebody, you know what I mean? Like that would be a filler word, right?
Yeah, or something like If
Yeah.
intentional listen to people, even the professionals, you will hear a lot of filler words. So,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we catch all of that.
Yeah. We're going through a massive awakening and realization on the planet that things are not well in the world and we need to make it better. Are you seeing that in some of the talk topics at Toastmasters, where group members are focusing on positive change and a flow of ideas to make life and community in the world a little bit better? Are you seeing that more over the past couple of years?
And Toastmasters, David?
Mm.
Yes. Matter of fact, just in a meeting last evening, and we had one of the members to give a 20-minute speech. And her speech was mainly asking each member to write down 3 issues that we thought were of great concern in this country that need to be addressed.
Wow.
And once all the members gave their 3, we had to choose 3. And the conversations that came out of that, it wasn't all that nice and cozy, but it was fruitful, because people had different opinions about what they thought. They went from disrespect of human mankind to aliens at the border. We went from healthcare, the cost of healthcare, and the lack of integrity. It was a gamut of things. But in the end, with all the conversation, and it was one kind of conversation you don't often see in Toastmasters, because Toastmasters tend to pretty much limit certain conversations when it comes to religion and politics. But this conversation I felt was much needed. And in the end, it came down to 3 of the issues. The first one was the disrespect for human mankind. The second was the lack of integrity. And the third one was casual, what is the term we use when people are not really accepted for the things that they say. That was one that
Sort
That
of a dismissal or cancel culture kind of a,
yes, cancel culture. That was the third.
okay.
That's what we agreed on. But those conversations need to be at times in Toastmaster, but we have to be cautious, but making sure we're able to have them and walk away from the table upholding the Toastmasters core values, which are integrity, respect, service, and excellence. If we
Yeah.
do that, we can have those conversations.
Yeah. So Toastmasters is building, you know, it's really geared to people who want to improve their communication skills. Let's say they're in a job where they are maybe in a management sort of role, or you're an entrepreneur and you want to improve your communication with your clients or in the community that you serve. It's really geared to that. But my sense is it's also developing character and leadership and in those that come and join and become members. Am I correct?
That's correct. Exactly. And Toastmasters goes beyond club meetings. We have connections with the community. We have an alliance with the Rotary Club. It is an organization that really has tentacles that just stretches way out. And it's about building relationships. When Mr. Smedley started this organization, it was because he was working at the YMCA and he noticed there was a lack of camaraderie, collaboration, communication with the community members that were coming to the Y. And he felt like that we need to bring people together so that we can be more effective in building relationships and then building communities. And he came up with this organization for men only. But later on, years later, women were brought into it. But that was his whole strategy, was to bring people together and learn how to communicate more effectively, how to build leaders, because we need better communities and we need better families, stronger units in our schools. And it's just an organization that brings all those institutions together.
Yeah, and it's worldwide. So, if
Yes.
watching this or listening to this, you tap into Toastmasters in your community. I know here in Toronto, where I'm based, there's like hundreds of chapters.
Yes.
Yeah, serving different needs. Are you finding that Toastmasters is also a breeding ground for TED Talks? Have any of those that have, that are in your group gone on maybe to do a local TED Talk? And if so, what topics are they taking on?
I do know a couple of people that have gone on. I can't remember one young lady. I recall it was centered around, she had come through a tornado, and I don't remember the title of her TED Talk, but that was the center, the focus of the talk. But yes, a lot of Toastmasters, that is a platform for them to, to move into the TED Talks, because it really is like a launching pad for
Yeah.
you, to spring forward into that arena. Personally, I've been asked to, to go in that direction. I plan to, but I think it's a great start to get into TED Talks. Yeah, you come through Toastmasters.
Yeah, and also, there's like I know in my community, there's various speakers groups and speaker slams and contests, and the best speaker wins an award or a cash prize. So I feel like Toastmasters is a great place to, if you want to find your voice and you want to have confidence and you want to contribute to the world,
Yes.
drop into a Toastmasters and
Why
try.
not, David? Why
Yeah.
not?
Let's
Yes.
this is great, Gloria. We're with Gloria C. Jones. We're talking about, things like, you're never too old to start something new. And you're not, if you've got that drive and your purpose and your passion, you can make really good things happen. So let's just switch gears a little here, Gloria. And the other area that drives you is leadership.
Yes.
So my question is, why does the notion of leadership speak to you so much?
One of the things that I saw on early as a child was great leadership. Started first in my home. We used to always say our dad was a man's man, took authority over his home, make sure we had what we needed. And provided for us. And he was just a very, example, very good example of what we believe, a father should be like and exemplify that authority. But I also saw leadership skills in my community. There were so many men that really understood the importance of, you know, being over their families and making sure that their children were raised properly. So I came up in a village where leadership was common amongst the men and women, but then it also filtered over into the church. So when we went to church, strong leaders, they were very committed to making sure we as children were taught biblical principles because what they had experienced, they had come through so much because of the civil rights. And this was their momentum. They didn't want their children or grandchildren to have to go through what they went through. So they put their energies and efforts, they concerted them together, and they made sure that we had that strong leadership in the family unit, the community, and the church. So it's been a part of my life, and it's just part of who I am.
And you touched on the cornerstones of good leadership, home, family, church, community. As you and you're big in community now, and your post-retirement life, as you work in your community to uplift others, and even in your work to turn out future leaders with your work with Toastmasters or in schools with youth, as we talked about before today, what do you want to see future leaders embrace moving forward? What characteristics do you want to see future leaders embrace moving forward?
Dave, I want to impart into the younger people at an early age. I want them to understand that there are opportunities for them to be leaders as young people. When I say young, right now, I go into with a team of people, the middle schools. We start there, building those leadership traits at an early age. Because what it will do, it will grow and it will enhance as they grow through school, high school, on to college, making sure they've got a solid foundation. So I would say that starting with the younger people, like in my time, we were young kids and we were modeled, it was modeled before us, and we were, given opportunities to lead. I can remember as a young child, we were given opportunities at an early age in our church to stand before congregants and speak at a young age. I want to see that for these young people in this time, not only in their church, but in schools, in debate, on debate teams, whatever the opportunities may be. They have greater opportunities than we did. I want them to take advantage of those opportunities. So we have to raise the awareness at a younger age.
I love it. And I love the fact that you're empowering them to speak and communicate and share rather than hide. I see a lot of
Yes.
youth, hiding with their cell phones.
I was going to say that. Yes.
Or
Yes.
social media. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
we need you to take part. We need you to say yes. You've said yes to your new life, and look what's coming, up for you.
Yes.
Miracles, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, in terms of leadership, he recently studied with, as I said, our recent guest on this podcast a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Lance Secretan, who's a leadership coach and speaker and author. What is it about his teachings on leadership that resonates with you?
Oh, that's an amazing question. David, I don't have all of the answers to that question.
That's okay.
Say this much. When I met Dr. Lance on a Zoom meeting with the Toastmasters, how I met him, and he began to share his teachings, there was an automatic connection. Somehow or another, the very teachings of Dr. Secretan they resonated so much with me because they were my reality. It was almost as if I got an answer to my way of thinking, the way I've been living, the way I feel about a lot of things. It didn't really, I really didn't have the answers to why or how come. And not only me, but members of my family. So it's part of our DNA. We've always questioned certain things about there's something a little different, like a little dab of something different about us that we don't quite get. And sometimes it's not very understandable, but we accepted it and we've gone on through life. And now we're in our 60s and it's like, okay. And then bam, I bump into Dr. Lance Secreting. And here's this man speaking, and I'm saying, wow, it's almost as if I had met him before. And
Mm.
we had lengthy conversations about my life and his teachings and his belief. And there was that connection. And all I can say is this: I've gone through his master class, awesome experience, awesome experience. Money could even, pay for what I've gained through that master class. He's an awesome, awesome teacher, um, um, mastermind. And in that, I walked away with this. I got to know myself.
Mm.
I thought I knew me, but I know me better than ever before because of his teachings. And what I learned, there's something that he teaches. We live either from our social self or we live from our essential self. And what I've learned, I've been living from my essential self, from the soul. I operate from the soulish, that soul. And that part of me is why it's so easy to give. It's so easy to share, to want to inspire, to build those relationships. It's just my norm. That's who I am, and that's what I learned. And I also learned too, he has this concept of why be do. Why am I here? And I'm here to create a more respectful and inclusive world. Well, what am I going to be while I'm here? I'm going to be loving and I'm going to be an empathetic person. And how am I going to do it? I'm going to inspire others to achieve greatness through teaching them, speaking to them, and coaching them. And then I learned that my one dream, what is that one dream? That is to inspire others to create more joy by encouraging them to be the best that they can be. That's what I walked away with.
Mm. And you're doing that now. So you're teaching youth, you're giving them that message. You're giving those
Yes,
over 60 that message that, it's never too late to make a decision to be your essential self or your social self. Real quick, what's the distinction between your social self and your essential self?
the the social self, the essential self, we use that term as where you're connecting to your higher self. Okay. The soulish, the social self is connected to your ego.
Ah,
Yeah.
the big challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, let go of your.
So that's the difference. The soul versus the ego.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So the social self is connected to the ego, and the essential self is connected to your soul.
And do you notice a difference in your own life, in your own world, when you're living from your essential self versus
Of
your.
course. Of course. Because see, I was doing it all along with my family members. And we didn't understand some things about ourselves because it was like there was something a little different. Because with my siblings, with my parents, it goes all the way back to my parents. We saw it modeled before us. My parents were exceptional, but not perfect.
No,
There
not
was something different about my parents that stood out in the community. And we inherited that as children. And we've gone through life and we've always asked ourselves, what is this that's a little different about us? Why is it that it comes so easy for us to want to make the different in others' lives before we make it in our own? And we just thought, well, maybe this because of the way dad and mom taught us. But I've always wondered because as I went through the professional life, I would give of myself and I would give on my job the best. There's just a spirit of excellence on our lives. And for some reason, it would be rejected by a lot of them, but it was getting the results and it didn't make sense to me. If I'm giving my best and I'm getting the results, but then I'm being rejected as the person, that doesn't make sense. And I couldn't quite get it. Came up with this thought. Why is it that the best in me is bringing the worst out of you? What is that about? And it was when I met Lance Secreton, and when he said, some of us live from our essential self, from the soul, too many live from their social self, the
yeah,
ego.
the ego.
You, I knew what was the gap and why there was a gap.
Yeah,
So,
because you're triggering them, right?
huh?
You're triggering them.
Yes, there you go, David. Yes,
I love.
not knowing that I was triggering them, but I could see, and I was a part of all of that, that confusion, but didn't understand why. But the essential self of Gloria was triggering the social self of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have a choice, you have that choice. You can choose
Yes,
one or the other. And
yes.
yeah, this has been a great conversation. We went a little over, but I want to continue. We're going to do our deeper dive next. So for those listening or tuning in, stay with us because we're going to go a little deeper with Gloria in her work with in Alabama, in an area called the Black Belt. And Gloria, I want to thank you. You're such a delight. And this wraps up our 26 minutes with discussion. But in our deeper dive segment next, we're going to talk about the Black Belt in Alabama, where you are, and what change and ideas you're sharing in that area and in that community. I want to thank those tuning into 26 minutes with. I want to thank you. I want to thank Gloria C. Jones. Again, this show is about leaders, change makers, and those with courage to make a positive impact in the world we live in. Gloria, before we, end, where do we connect with you if we want to, learn more about you?
Well, you can check me out, Toastmaster International, District 77.
All right. I really appreciate this today.
Oh, it's pleasure's all mine, David. Thank you.
Thank you.